Auburn Baseball has completed week 4 for their 2020-2024 season, if I can get that right. Let's take a look at the week that was. We're going to look back at the weekend series, talk about what we just saw in the midweek game, and of course, look ahead to the next weekend series. All that coming up right now. War Eagle Auburn family, and a special welcome and War Eagle to our E2C Network family. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you are watching live on YouTube or if you're catching the replay or the audio version of the show. We appreciate you being here and hanging out with us and spending some time with us. We encourage you to subscribe, follow, like, and share this content on whatever platform you're getting this. It's always a humongous help. As a reminder, this is our weekly recap show of Auburn baseball, recapping week 4 coming up here. The first part of our show will be our main what you need to know for Auburn baseball, the information that is most pertinent to you. And then especially if you're watching the live portion, we'll do a Q&A at the end of this and some topics that maybe you want to bring up and talk about in a little bit further detail as the viewers. So that's how the format goes. Week 4 coming up right here. Now, let me just tell you, we got a lot to talk about this week, so y'all just saddle up right now. Week 4, looking back at the weekend series with Austin Peay, and let me go ahead and apologize because I called them Austin Peavy all last week. Don't know why I did that. It's weird. We'll just move on from it. I've made my amends. Austin Peay weekend series. Then we'll be talking about the Troy midweek game we just saw with an 8-2 victory, and then looking ahead to the first of the SEC action this season against Vanderbilt in Nashville, which is going to be a very challenging series. But first, let's take a look back at the series that was with Austin Peay, not Austin Peavy. As a recap of all 3 games, the Tigers took 2 out of 3, winning the first game 7-6, dropping in the second game 6-15. And then winning in that final game, responding in fine fashion, 24-5. Let me repeat that again. Yes, you heard me right. In game 5, Austin Peay went down to the Auburn Tigers 24-5. You know, it's often said that you're not defined by your mistakes. You are defined by how you respond to those mistakes. And if that is the case for this Auburn baseball team, they showed that they are able to respond to their mistakes in fine fashion. So it was a very good thing to see from them. Want to give you your best batter and best pitcher. And obviously, we're just picking the best that we can out of all this. So you may say that this guy was better, that guy was better. We're just giving you the ones that probably in our minds made the most of the impact. Best batter, best pitcher. Best batter, Cooper McMurray in that series. Played in all 3 games, batting 6.36 in that. Also on base percentage, 6.92. And then his slugging percentage was 1.182. 7 for 11, 3 runs, 3 doubles, 1 home run. And basically, this was all like in game 3, too. 7 RBIs and 2 walks. He was instrumental in that series win. And I think you could just say basically everybody was instrumental in that series win because everybody got in on the action pretty much. Not everybody, but anybody that really wanted an opportunity to get on the scoring action got in on that action. Cooper McMurray, though, had a career high 4 hits, and 3 of those were doubles. Went 4 for 4 on that day. And he actually becomes the first player since Cole Foster to have since the 2022 Auburn Regional, 4 extra base hits in a single game. So that was quite a performance in the batting aspect. In the pitching aspect, I'm going to give the player of the week, or at least of the series, to Tanner Bauman, who we just saw in the midweek game. The senior, 1-0, 0 ERA, and 1.1 innings pitched, no hits, no runs, no earned runs, also no walk, 1 walk, and 1 strikeout, not allowing a single bit of batting average. Very instrumental in the series opening win. And you would think, too, you didn't really know at the time how instrumental that was going to be, him locking them down in a comeback win for the Tigers in that game 1. If they don't get that one, they're not in position to take the series on Sunday the way that Saturday went. Final 4 outs and a scoreless frame for him, and obviously set up that walk-off win for the Tigers in very exciting fashion. And by the way, he is one of the most frequent appearance pitchers this year so far for Auburn. That was tied tonight by I forget who, but 6 appearances and 5 of those have been scoreless. few of the storylines from this weekend, things that I wanted to just bring up. If you hadn't heard the news, there was no Joseph Gonzalez in the starting rotation. The rotation was Alsop, Myers, and then Herbert Holtz got the start. It was TBD leading into the weekend. Herbert Holtz got the start on that game 3. Gonzalez is not hurt. His health seems to be fine. Apparently, in their pitching lab, they identified something for him that really needed to be worked on and kept in check, and they spent the week working on it. I haven't heard today whether or not that was addressed or not, but obviously there was a lot of PR expressing everything's fine. He's just being, I called it a reset of sorts last week, and so that's what it seems like. But it was interesting to see Myers moved up. Who would get that game 3 start, and it ended up being Herbert Holtz. Game 1, as we talked about, big comeback win for the Tigers, which was very exciting. Game 2 was just, I don't know how you say it other than the pitchers are just getting roughed up. And errors, here's the thing too, pitchers weren't great, but the errors were abysmal too. 7 errors in game 2. I think if you listen to coach's press conference after it, you kind of heard a lot of disappointment with his ball club. I think he even said it was one of the worst games that he's ever been a part of. And again, it's not about your mistakes, but how you respond to those mistakes. And I even wrote down here in my notes, game 3, what a response. Herbert Holtz getting the start. Gavin Miller had a grand slam. Cooper McMurray, as we talked about, 4 for 4 on the day. Cade Ballou got his first home run. Ben Score, I think is how you say his name, debut on the mound. Connor Copeland season debut. So much happened in this game. And I was very pleased and happy to see how they all responded. Now, if you've noticed, some of your Tigers have been missing in this past weekend, but also in this midweek game. There's been a little bit of a sickness going through the locker room. Herbert Holtz was actually out for a little bit. Bobby Pierce, has been out for several games now, it seems like. So that's kind of going through and still carrying over in through the midweek portion of this. During that game 3, they had a season high in hits and runs, 25 runs, as we talked about with the score, 14 hits. As far as the rankings after that weekend series, Auburn now moved up to and somewhere in the range of number 12 to number 20. Depending on which ranking you look at, number 12 to number 20, that's one spot higher. They were number 13 to number 20 across those rankings last week. So at least in some people's minds, moving up just a little bit. That was your look back at the weekend series. Now let's look at what just happened. Troy 8-2. This game was not played in Auburn or Troy. It was played in Huntsville at Toyota Field, home of the Rocket City Trash Pandas. If you haven't followed minor league baseball, you're probably like, what did you just say? I said what I said, and I meant what I meant. The Rocket City Trash Pandas. Again, tonight, your starter, Connor McBride, in the win. Also saw tonight Armstrong, Cannon, Bauman. Now, if that sounds interesting to you, if you've been paying attention to us talking on these games at about this time every week, you will note that that's a different set of guys than we're normally talking about in relief. And I think partly that is because some of those were used a lot last weekend. But as they talked about in the broadcast tonight, this is the last chance for any tune-ups before we get into SEC play, which is not going to let up at all, starting off with Vanderbilt, who we'll talk about in just a little bit. So you saw some of those familiar names, John Armstrong, Will Cannon, Tanner Bauman, obviously trying to get a few more innings before they were able or are having to go up against competition like Vanderbilt. Taking care of business in the midweek games, 4-0. Love to see that undefeated. And a lot of that is contributed to Connor McBride, who continues to look absolutely solid. And if he keeps this up, he's going to be threatening to take someone's spot on the weekend. Although I kind of hope we keep him where he is at this point and just keep him rolling like he is. Really, after the first inning, he allowed a home run. After that was completely fine, didn't allow a hit. And really nice to see for him. Also, Auburn's been on a pretty hot hitting streak when it comes to home runs. That was in danger, it seemed like, late in the game until Caden Greed got his first home run of the year. Cooper McMurray supplied an extra one, so it looks like it was going to be safe regardless. But the Tigers do continue their home run hitting streak in this game. Storylines for this game. Most of you will remember the name Mike Bello. He was part of several Auburn teams in past seasons. He's now playing for Troy. Probably a product of the transfer portal there, going down to get a little bit more playing time, as you saw tonight. Whether it was him playing simply because Auburn was there, I'm sure he's probably starting, if not playing very frequently for Troy, knowing the talent that he is. So good to see him again. I want to remind you that Troy won a series with Indiana. So if you're asking, what does this win actually mean? The Indiana series, I haven't looked at Indiana to see how good they aren't in baseball. But it's still a series win for them. They also took Alabama down to the wire, only losing by 1 run. And when you talk about Huntsville games, this is now the 3rd time Auburn has been there, and they are 3-0 at Huntsville, playing at the Trash Pandas Stadium. And a good response by the fans there tonight. We talk about this a lot, whether we're talking about, any sport, really, whether we're talking about basketball, football, softball, gymnastics, everybody shows up for the Auburn Tigers. And we continue to do that in fine fashion in Huntsville. So very proud to see the response of the Auburn family up there once again. This began a full week on the road. Since we were technically at a neutral site, it is on the road, though. And then we're heading up to Nashville this week. And your Tigers record stands right now 13-3. Enjoy it while it's here, folks, because it's going to get tough. That record may look a little bit different, good or bad. It will look a lot different in some ways heading into SEC play. So to round out the show, let's look ahead to the Vanderbilt matchup. And let me remind you, rankings vary, but Auburn has them listed as number 8. Vanderbilt. Doesn't surprise you. It shouldn't surprise you that Vanderbilt's in that position. They are currently 14-3 in the middle of finishing up their midweek game, which was well in hand. So we're going to call them 15-3 at this point. Very similar games in terms of records for Auburn. Auburn not able to play that extra midweek game versus Air Force because of weather. They've got wins against EKU. Auburn played them. Indiana State, which is a team that made the World Series last year in a run rule. They've also beaten Houston and Texas. They do have losses to Gonzaga, Dayton, and Florida Atlantic. So do with that what you will. You've got the information now in terms of what their wins and losses look like. First SEC series, as I've said, folks, saddle up. It's not going to get any easier. And you start with Vanderbilt at Vanderbilt. The games are at 6 on Friday, Saturday at 2, Sunday at 1. Be careful of that Friday rain that's coming in. We might see the schedule moved around just a little bit. What to expect from Vanderbilt? Well, they have the SEC pitcher of the week in Devin Futrell. Futrell, I think is how you say it. And so that's what you're running into. If that's not enough, in week 4, their starting pitchers had a 0.32 ERA, 1 run in 28 innings. Yeah, think about that. So the recipe here, it seems to be they give up some runs when you get to their relief. So that's the strategy for Auburn in my mind. Get to their relief pitchers as quickly as possible. And I think it's going to be a good test to show how good our bats actually are against this type of pitching. So while it's a little bit of trepidation of who we're about to face in terms of pitching, it's also a good test to see truly how good we are at batting. Last weekend, they took on Illinois State. They won 14-9, 7-2, and 4-0 for a weekend series sweep. And of course, as I said, they're wrapping up, or at least as I'm recording this, their Indiana game, which should be well in hand at this point. So there you have it. That was week 4 for Auburn baseball. Your look back at Austin Peay, your look ahead to Vanderbilt. And of course, we talked about Troy too, and hope you are informed. And that is everything that you need to know for that. Now, what we'd love to do with you all, anybody who's watching live especially, is to take any comments or questions that you all might have about Auburn baseball right now, whether it's about what you currently saw versus Troy, things that you were worried about against Austin Peay, or that you like that you saw about Austin Peay, or if you just want to lament about what we're about to face in Vanderbilt, this is the time for you. So drop a comment, a question, a topic in now about Auburn baseball, and we're going to definitely address any of those that you have if there are any of those. I do want to give a shout out to Gail Brown, who became a channel member here on YouTube. Thank you very much for that. It helps keep the lights on here at E2C Network and helps us continue to do what we do. Speaking of doing what we do, you can always count on my friend Tyler to remind you that if it is orange and blue, it is what we do. As kind of final thoughts for me, trying to get ready for SEC play, What I'm most encouraged by is, and I've said it several times tonight, is Auburn's response to the adversity they faced this past Saturday of literally getting run out of their own field and ran the team back out the other way when they got an opportunity the next day. We continue to ask questions about the starting pitching in terms of consistency. Coaches echoed those same sentiments. It's been difficult to get Joseph going. Hopefully, whatever mechanical issue they've been working on with him is going to get corrected and he can be inserted back into the lineup sooner rather than later. However, even despite that, you got to be encouraged by the rest of the staff picking up slack wherever there is some. They've only really had one truly bad game this year, even though they have 3 losses and 13-3 record. That's pretty impressive too, to start off the year not struggling in midweek games up to this point. And really liking what I'm seeing out of this team and feeling very encouraged as we go into our first SEC weekend play. All right. Final opportunity for questions, comments, and topics before we get out of here. You can drop those in very quickly here at the end. And then I'll give you a reminder about what's coming up next here at E2C Network, what you can stay in touch with. Tomorrow night, the Auburn Family Night live stream call-in show. Would love to have you here. You can use the call-in link. You can talk with us just like you're doing now, or you can take part by calling it. We talk about anything and everything Auburn. My favorite time of the week because it's my easiest time. Just click live and we talk about everything Auburn. And then this Sunday, the Auburn Experience, episode 70. That is our scheduled stuff right now, 9 Eastern this Sunday. Now, keep in mind that the SEC tournament is about to start happening tomorrow. Auburn's game is Friday. Hopefully, they'll have many more than that. And we'll be doing post-game shows for that, provided what time they get done. So keep in mind, all of that's coming up for you this week. Been fun talking about Auburn baseball in the early part of the season, but I am ready to start talking about them in SEC play. It's always more fun when we've got the conference games to discuss and analyze because you really measure yourself up when it comes time for SEC play, and that begins now. I want to appreciate you all for joining us live, for watching the replay, or listening on the broadcast on audio portions, podcast options, wherever you can get them out there. That was week 4, the look back at Austin Peay, the discussion about what we just saw with Troy, and then, of course, the look ahead to Vanderbilt. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Until we talk to you again. War Eagle.